Hello, everybody. Dave Neal here, stand-up comic host of Bachelor Nation News. I know we have a heavy one. It's a heavy one. Does Jesus care if you smash before marriage? Oh, Dave, don't desecrate the art of lovemaking with the word smash. Smash was also a hit TV show on NBC. I loved it. It was canceled too soon. But I say smash because we have words that we don't say here because they get triggered advertising. And, your boy's got to afford a new Trader Joe's outfit right here, right? Don't I look like I'm just going to scan some avocados? Not a metaphor. Anyway, so great podcast we're going to get into right now where Clayton talks about faith. And I don't know if he's talking to a pastor or just someone of the Christian faith, but it's very fascinating, very interesting. You guys are going to like it. Behind the scenes, we're recording this live on the Patreon, patreon.com/Dave Neal. If you want to be a part of a very fun community, they're live right now. 200 plus members are on the Patreon. We got a dozen or so in the chat right now. All right, we're going to get into this video. And this is the time of year we're calling Barrel Scraping Dave season. No content till July 11th. And everyone's like, oh, there's no new episodes till July 11th. What will we ever talk about? And then all of a sudden the Christians are like, let's talk about Clayton and the fantasy suites. And I'm like, I'm all ears. Literally, look at me. All right, my mom had to birth me with these ears. Okay, pray for Connie. So the deal is, barrel scraper Dave, because I've always said you scrape the bottom of the barrel. That's like, that's kind of like a derogatory term. Oh, he's scraping the bottom of the barrel. But a lot of people like what's at the bottom of the barrel. I got this comment. As we've discussed, the term fond refers to the caramelized bits left in the bottom of a pan after you've browned meat or vegetables. You aren't scraping the barrel, Dave. You're making a delicious pan sauce with all the fond left on the bottom of the pan after a sizzling hot Bachelor season. Love the videos, no matter the season. And that, my friend, is a power listener if I've ever seen one.
Barrel scraping Dave.
So let's get into it. We're scraping barrels. I did a stand-up set last night, and I'll be back on Tuesday at this awesome venue in Hollywood, Los Angeles, California. It's a rooftop, and it's a free show. If you want to come to that, let me know. Tuesday night, I believe it's at 7 p.m. There's a DJ beforehand. Great drinks. It's an awesome look. I mean, it looks fantastic, right? It'll be perfect weather. All right, let's get into it. Here's Clayton's conversation about premarital sex. I'll let you know what I think about it all, and then someone in the comments section will say, Dave hates Christians. It's bound to happen. No, friends, it's called nuance. Jesus loved nuance. All right, here we go.
I don't want to say compromise because there's certain things. Let's just, let's spearhead the elephant in the room, right? There's, I think one of the biggest things that I knew going into the show that was not Christian-like that I was going to probably end up doing was engage in premarital sex. That's something that I've done prior to this show. And it's something that I know that's something that I've done. And I'm like, you know what? This is something that says in the Bible, you should wait till marriage. And I haven't in my past.
Does it say you should wait till marriage? I don't know what version of the Bible we're talking about here. By the way, I love the best thing to come out of Christianity is their audio visuals. This is what I'm talking about. Can we get the Christians to start producing Bachelor podcasts? Bachelor podcasts are so poorly produced. You have Clayton over here. Look at him. He's got the sermon mic. He looks like he's about to star in Les Miserables. You know what I mean? He's got like Jean Valjean. He's got the whole thing going on. There it is. You can buy it. Should I buy this? Should someone, if anyone wants to purchase this for me, let me know. I'll come out there. I'll just start reading my notes from the good book. I'll be Leather Book Dave, and we'll do that. All right. Anyway, sorry. That's a digression. Jesus made me in his image, and he wanted digressions.
And so I've lived with that. And I knew going in that I was going to potentially have that option where I was going to potentially become intimate with at least one woman.
Oh my God.
And I did in that environment. I had feelings of love for each of the three women. And so for me, I felt, well, I'm in love with these women. So this is naturally something to explore if I'm going to get engaged with somebody. Like I don't take engagement lightly. So I need to have that physical intimacy aspect. And that's the part that, again, I have friends that waited till marriage and then they were physically intimate with their partner. For me, just the way I'm wired, I just would rather know if that's going to be part of the relationship.
Okay, so Clayton, he's saying, look, hey, I get it. You're not supposed to do it, but I need to know before I go into the thing. We have Veronica in the chat. If you don't mind, let me know, but I think Veronica's okay with me sharing her opinions. She said she's read the Bible 50 times. We believe you. We respect you, Veronica. And she says all versions of the Bible say the same thing. Sex outside of marriage is sexual immorality, but you can still be forgiven. All sins can be forgiven except for one. Okay, well, but the idea of saying something's immoral world, that becomes shaming of people that don't have sex until marriage. And then, of course, that can be a separate issue, right? Just like saying, oh, look, hate the sin, not the sinner. We're against homosexuality, but we love you. It's like, well, now I feel like a piece of shit. You know what I mean? I feel like a piece of shit if my community thinks I'm sinning all the time because, I got a boyfriend and not a girlfriend. Like, who cares where I'm putting my things? Who cares what I'm doing with my body? But that's the question, Veronica. We're going to get to the answer. We're going to let this play out a little bit more. But I do love all of the input. I'm sure we're going to get a ton of comments down there. My question, though, when the Bible was written, what was the average age of marriage? Were people getting married at like 17, 15, 16, 18? How old were they? I mean, didn't people only live to 35, 40? Do I have this wrong? 50? Although I will say that for like the second year in a row, for the second year in a row, the average lifespan has gone down in the United States. So there we are, folks. Greatest country in the world. You know what I mean? We can't even keep people alive. Good grief. Medicare for all. All right, folks. Digress. But this is what you do when you're scraping barrels.
Barrel scraping Dave.
If it's there, if it's not, before I get engaged and married. So I wouldn't say that I compromised. I was already that's something that, again, it's something that I knew going into the show was going to potentially happen and it wouldn't be Christian-like. But I felt that it was important for me to explore that side of the relationship.
Here's what's Christian-like to me. We talk about Jesus Christ. We talk about helping poor people, right? That's not that we have to pick one or the other, but what's Christian-like to me is helping rise people out of poverty. Now, we live in a country where our defense spending is in the trillions of dollars and billions, and we still have poverty on our streets. We have cities that don't have clean drinking water. Okay, we have so many issues that I go, are we hung up over who's pumping Palmers when they're 27 years old? And if we are, we better have made our beds. If we're hung up on premarital sex, we better have solved all of the other issues, because I do think you need to put the issues first, which I would say would be finding some way to socialize. Oh boy, triggered some of you. Socialize healthcare so that we all pay into a system that works for everybody. So we don't have people that like, oh, I don't want to get that spider bite looked at, and you find out that you have skin cancer because you can't afford a deductible and I say in the greatest country in the world, in the richest country in the world, right? So when we talk about all these things we get hung up on, these tough issues, all I say is, look, okay, well, as long as we're all voting for Medicare for all, as long as we're all voting for taxing the billionaires and having corporations pay their fair share, I get into Bernie Sanders, as long as we're all doing that, then I'm okay if we want to get tick-tacky on all the other things. But let's not miss the point that we're turning our blind eye to big issues out there, human rights issues, and we're worried about whose Palmer's being pumped.
So I really appreciate your transparency, because, we all have things in our life that we're not proud of, or things that are inconsistent with our faith. All of us have a lot of failures, and not many of us are willing to talk about them in front of millions of people like you've been willing to do. So nothing but respect from me for that. But if I can just challenge you a little bit to say, I wonder if Jesus cares about who you sleep with. Why does Jesus do that?
And again, I laugh because these are interesting topics to talk about, and it's not to make light of it. But I just imagine, this is where the comedian goes to. I just imagine Jesus, and he's in heaven, and he's pearly gates, and he's doing his thing, and Gabriel's like, "What are you mad about?" And Jesus is like, God, and then Gabriel's like, is it the World War III? Is it the Cold War happening? Is it the refugees coming out of Ukraine and all the issues happening and the weapons of mass destruction? And Jesus is like, no, it's not it. And he's like, well, is it the fact that we, this? No, Clayton's sleeping with multiple women. And oh, Jesus, sorry about that. We're sorry we've angered you.
I don't think it's because he's trying to keep you from something like that's good for you. I think it's because he's trying to keep you from something that can cause a lot of hurt and pain in your life and other people's lives.
Which brings us to the question, is Jesus the biggest cockblock in the world? I'm kidding, folks. It's a Friday. Take a chill pill.
And I think you saw that play out, right? Part of the hurt experienced by Gabby and Rachel,
We're
and
killing it
even
right now.
to some extent Susie in this whole thing, has been that you were attached emotionally and physically to these women, and that cements, because that's the way God designed sex, is to cement that relationship, that married relationship, and then it was cemented and then pulled apart, and that's really painful. And so I just want to make sure that we don't think of Jesus as some sort of person who's trying to keep us from something good in his commands about sex, as much as trying to provide the good life for us.
Christians also have really good haircuts. He's got a nice haircut. No, you know what I mean? Good audio, good visuals, and a good hair. They're cleaning up well.
And it sounds like, you've had to wrestle with this issue of, is Jesus the Lord over my sexuality or not really, right? Is he giving me commands that he calls me to as the king and as my savior and my hope? Or are these suggestions, right, that I have the ability to follow or not follow? And I think everybody has that struggle. Are we going to compartmentalize our faith and have areas of our life that Jesus is not welcome into? Like, if you think of a house.
Yeah, the Bachelor fantasy suite. There's no camera guys and no Jesus. Listen, okay? You can see it. You can see Clayton the morning after Jesus, but no Jesus is allowed in the fantasy suite. So we're going to have other videos about this because it's very fascinating. And with all due respect, we search for comedy where it is, but it's a fascinating conversation. My comment section right now is saying, geez, Dave, you can't possibly cover this. These are like theological questions we've been battling for ages. And I totally get all that. But the question of whether or not Jesus cares, it's an honest question, because people go, well, in the Bible it says, and then we get into that whole game, right? Where it's like, it's people read Bible quotes the way they read the amendments. Well, and the Third Amendment is, you don't even know what you're talking about. And I'm not saying everyone doesn't know what they're talking about. I'm just saying there's so much misinformation. There's so many times the Bible has been rewritten, conflated, language switched, kings coming around. This is now the way, slut shaming, anti-feminism. There's so much going on there, where Jesus was was a feminist. We'll get into that. The Bible does not forbid premarital sex. This is obviously from the Christian Left blog. Now, we just played, a different point of view. The man who was talking to Clayton, which, by the way, they've got a really high quality product that they've got over there. So go check them out. There is no passage of the Bible that references premarital sex as a sin against God. The association between sin, and by the way, this will trigger some people, and maybe this is right and maybe it's wrong, but this is no more right than someone else who's interpreted the Bible. People go to school for years studying interpretations of a book written thousands of years ago. Right? The association between sin and premarital sex is a new Christian idea. The only possible reference to premarital sex being a sin in the Bible is in the New Testament. This premise, although is generally dismissed by theologians because the Greek word porne, am I pronouncing that right? Or sexual immorality is commonly incorrectly translated into the English word fornication. In biblical times, women were the owned property of a man. Men ruled over women and their children. Women had very few, if any, rights, and men often bought women from their families or at an auction. Usually at age 12 and a half, the fathers owned the women, daughters, wives, concubines, handmaidens, servants, and Lady Sarai of Napa. And if you wanted to have intercourse with one of his properties, then you had to ask his permission. If her father sold a daughter, he would get more money for her if she was a virgin. Non-virgins were less expensive to buy. If a man purchased a daughter, this sounds wild, right? But if this is how it was, were we misquoting words in attributing them to fornication? We already saw this with homosexuality. We go, it says it in the Bible, man shall not have sex with man. And then you go, well, it actually kind of says something completely different. But when the Greeks, they added these words, you didn't do that. And then it makes you wonder. And again, people can get very upset. Dave, how can you hate so much? All I say is this. In the end, what matters to me is that we operate from frequencies of love. We love our neighbor. We love our friends. We love our family. And we do good. For all, for people that we know and don't know. That's what matters to me. And people might say, Dave, well, why are you punching down on Christians? I don't think I am at all. But there's a lot of people that are going to have sex before marriage. And if they are going to do so, I don't want them to feel a certain way about it, especially if, trigger warning, that sex comes from someone who didn't give their consent. And then they're going to feel like they're unworthy, that they're less than because they are no longer a virgin, this term that we have. That makes people worth more biblically. You know what I mean? So it all comes down to shame and shaming others. and getting rid of that and destigmatizing that. That's what's important to me. Spreading love. Spread love. It's the Brooklyn way. And then I don't know why I brought this up earlier, how early church leaders downplayed Mary Magdalene's influence by calling her a whore. So we were talking about this in the Patreon, but the idea, and I was like, wasn't she a prostitute? And there's actually this whole interesting thing I started reading about how in the Bible, Mary Magdalene, who was one of Jesus' early followers before Instagram, Jesus was the only one who had followers. Everyone's like, how big's your following? He's like, I'm verified. I have 12. You know what I mean? Disciples, that is. Come on, we're smart-ish. And early Christian texts depicted Mary Magdalene as not just a mere follower, but Jesus' trusted companion, which some interpreted to mean his wife. And as we saw, I believe in the Da Vinci Code, that was kind of the idea that Jesus actually had a kid and there was a bloodline that still existed. Great book, great movie. Gotta love Tom Hanks, but I don't know if there's any truth to it. All four canonical, am I pronouncing that right? Gospels of the New Testament, Mark, Matthew, Luke, and John noted Mary Magdalene's presence at Jesus' crucifixion, but only the Gospel of Luke discussed her role in Jesus' life and ministry, listing her among some women who had been healed of evil spirits and infirmities. Now, this isn't different than premarital sex, but it's just the idea that people will use information from the Bible and from Google, confirmation bias, we'll Google things. How is this person, we'll find the information we want to tell the story we want. Right? That's the bias that exists. So if someone wants to take Mary Magdalene and conflate her with another Mary, they can do that, and then we're just going to be like, oh yeah, Mary Magdalene, she was the prostitute that washed Jesus' feet. You know what I mean? And that's just not, the more they've studied it, the more they've realized there's multiple Marys in the Bible that were conflated into one Mary Magdalene, and that's when the Pope, thought that, I'm trying to find this right now. She was named in the gospel, so she obviously was important. There were apparently hundreds, if not thousands, of followers of Jesus, but we don't know most of their names, so the fact that she's named is a big deal. Yeah, so obviously in the Bible, we only know the greatest hits, the big stories. But the Bible is the original library, right? The Bible is just a library of different books. And imagine those all being told through different languages, through different time periods, through different ethical and moral fiber that exist in the power where the king controls the church, and so many different things going on there that it's just impossible to try to say, well, the Bible says this. When I talk about Christianity, I talk about doing good. I talk about core tenets. I talk about the commandments. I don't talk about this chapter says this, so I think it's important for us to question everything. Bruce says, I stepped away and came back, and Dave is making a video about prostitution. It must be a Friday.
Barrel scraping Dave.
That's right. So then we get to, because we get to people like Marjorie Taylor Greene. Oh, if we didn't lose you, we're going to lose you now. Who says women are weaker?
What is a woman? Because she said she's not a biologist. I'm going to tell you right now, what is a woman? This is an easy answer. We are a creation of God. We came from Adam's rib. God created us with his hands. We may be the weaker sex, we are the weaker sex, but we are our partner, our husband's wife.
We may be the weaker sex, but we're our partner and our husband's wife. We may not be worth as much once we lose our virginity, but we know that we're just property and we need to have a sandwich ready at the table. So obviously, when we talk about the toxicity that exists with ownership. I'm my husband's wife. I may be weaker than, my brain's not as big as his. I can't read goods, but I tell you, and I'm using a Southern accent. I'm not saying Southern people are dumb. But anyway, if anyone wants to buy me this, hey, maybe I'll just start a church and then I can get a tax write-off. Should I do that?
Barrel scraping Dave.
All right, so we're gonna be talking about this. If I've offended you, chances are you're not going to be reasonable in the comment section. But if you want, we will be here to chat. When it comes down to sum it all up, when it comes down to Clayton talking about premarital sex, he says, hey, yeah, I get the rules, but I knew I was going to go into it. And then the other guy, I should know his name. Rude of me to not know his name. He says, let's see what his name is. He says, hey, are we just going to compartmentalize the good parts from the bad? Let's just let him button it up.
Maybe you have a closet that's locked or a junk room that's locked. Are there parts of my life that are kept away from Jesus? Or is he going to be allowed into every area, every room, every part of my life? And do I want to follow him with my whole life? So as you kind of reflect back.
And then we'll end it there. I think my thought here, where I stand as a 36-year-old turning 37 next month. Oh, geez, I'm turning 37 in 2 weeks. Oh, boy. Oh, the grays are coming in. Anyway, I'm turning late 30s. Oh, boy, you're going to get a 3/8 midlife crisis. My thought is like, it is a good question. Do we want to follow everything Jesus says? And then I guess the question becomes, what did Jesus say? And I personally like to pull from different religions that, to me, it's a buffet of good. It's like, okay, I believe in self-actualizing. I believe in abundance, but I also believe that we've got a lot of issues at hand. And like I said before, with the poverty and all that, I have a hard time, and if someone wants to stay by the way, if someone doesn't want to have sex before marriage, good. That's not the conversation. Absolutely fine. But if someone doesn't want to have sex before marriage because they don't want to let their dad down, we're talking purity culture, different conversations. We've done plenty of talk about that, and there are differences. Let me know what you guys think. We'll have more content coming your way, and happy Friday to all of you. Keep it kind in the comment section, patreon.com/Dave Neal. Bye, everybody.